So yeah, that's definitely something I wanted to be. This meeting is being live streamed. Are we live right now? It looks like.
Yeah, it looks like. Yeah, that's good.
With a minute left to go. Maybe she hasn't put us live to the world yet.
Yeah, all
No.
these
Oh
tools are.
yeah, no, we're
Yeah.
live to the world. Here we go.
All right. Well, there we have it.
There we have it. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Predictable Revenue Live, where you get free coaching from top B2B sales development experts. Our mission as a company is to educate the world on how to grow businesses by creating repeatable, scalable, and predictable revenue through sales development. My name is Christina Espasto. I'm a sales and strategy coach here at Predictable Revenue, and I will be your host today. So today, I'm very excited. I'm chatting live with Miles Beth. So Miles is an entrepreneur, laser focused on helping medium-sized business lower their costs of new customer acquisition. So his company, the Beth Group, so he's the founder, does this through outbound prospecting, LinkedIn content creation, podcast production, and direct mail. So the company currently serves over 100 companies and donates 10% of the business profit to those in need. So I want to ask you about that in one quick second, and we'll let you have the mic here, but just some housekeeping, get some stuff out of the way. If for those who are listening have any comments or questions, definitely just throw them in the chat and we'll do our best to answer them live for you. And also make sure to click the subscribe button on this page so you can be notified about more investments and opportunities like this in the future. So Miles, when I read that, okay, so 10% of the business profit to those in need. So tell me all about that first.
Oh yeah, so it's a fun question. So I am a strong Christian and basically wanted to find a way to build a business that integrated my faith in a way that was beyond just kind of platitudes like you read about, like we want to be a kind company or we're making a difference. Like mission statements to me get so vague. So with our business, basically we've just committed to we're going to take 10% of the profit each month, whether it's a great month or a bad month. And yeah, find causes in need. We often donate our services to nonprofits to help with fundraising. So we actually, our biggest win recently is we got one cold email generated a $1.5 million fundraising gift.
No way.
Which was really cool for basically an at-risk youth facility in Minneapolis. But yeah, basically just wanted to integrate like biblical principles into the business. And that was kind of a no-brainer one. And it's really, really fun because for my wife and I, who runs it with me, she was a dental hygienist. I've been married a little over a year, but now she's very much involved in it. It's really fun because we have to give the money away.
Right.
We're not trading off with should we go out to dinner or should we give away money? It's like we've committed to it. So it's been, a huge blessing.
Wow. And I can only imagine how well received this has been and the feedback that you've gotten because of this.
Yeah, it's cool. I mean, I think it just, for me, has fueled growing in a way that also involves other people, because if you sort of think about growth for your own sake, I think it ultimately has very diminishing returns. Like the difference between making a living wage and more starts to taper off. And I know the data is, I think, $70,000 beyond that, it no longer makes you happy.
Right.
So I think for me to figure out what really drives me, that knowing that the more we grow, the more we're going to be able to do that in a pretty tangible way. Like 10% when you're trying to bootstrap a startup is not nothing in terms of
non-trivial,
the cash flow and stuff. So I think it's been a great motivator, and yeah, just have met a lot of people who've inspired me. There's a professor at Wheaton College named Paul Lee who taught me most of this, so I give him the credit. But it's been a really cool part of the journey.
Yeah, well, I can't stress enough the importance to give back. And here you are, a small company that's doing it, and you think of some of these large conglomerates that are making billions that aren't, or they are, but for tax purposes and things like that. So I mean, this is in its purest form, I think, the true spirit of the give back, right?
Yeah, I guess I'm surprised I told you that. Yeah, well, we do so much of it in private, but I guess you and I hit it off right away. So I'm thinking, I don't know that we market the temp, but yeah, it is. It definitely is a big part of my personal approach to business and something I'm happy to talk to anybody about.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. So good for you guys. Okay. So today we're talking marketing, right? And we're talking about sales and marketing in particular and bridging the gap. And right before we went live, we were chatting about how different the world has become. I mean, even in the last 5 years, and how we sell and market is basically a completely different engine than what we did before. And, I think when we're dealing with new clients and customers and they come to us and we see what they're doing, they're still, doing the things of the past without realizing that none of this is going to work today. Right. So what are some of the reasons why you think this has happened?
Yeah, you're the probably expert across the funnel more than me. My hunch is that there's been such economic prosperity so on the one hand, there's a ton of excess capital that's trying to be deployed. Yeah. And the amount of regulation that has gone into being a public company has become so great that I think we're at like half the number of public companies we had in 1990. So all of a sudden money's looking for like private equity and venture capital and like private investment. So you see these just ridiculous amounts of money going to things that don't even have revenue. Like I want to start like the next like headset company and like $80 million. It's a good idea, but like just it's an idea. And so as that's happened, I think companies have tried to figure out like, because venture capital is all about hitting home runs, like how do we go really fast? And they've sort of taken this model that Aaron from your guys' side, I think really was the pioneer of at Salesforce, of like get humans doing a repeatable activity because you can turn it into a cash register. And when he did it, then no one was doing it. It was like, I mean, the numbers are just like astounding in his first book, but over time, like any good idea, that becomes more common. And now I think companies are doing two things that are dangerous. They're hiring a bunch of SDRs on the basis of effort. So like I was hired as an SDR as a former college athlete at a Fortune 50 company. It's like, you have the genes, like go hammer the phone.
Right.
Or you'll probably see the same thing with hiring AEs. Like, oh, we've always hired AEs. And I think there is a huge flaw in the model where there's not predictability, as in input leads to output. And the cost of acquisition is getting so insane that you might have 8 SDRs and the company's acquiring like one customer every 6 months.
Yeah.
You're like the amount of like you're spending, like literally, if you had 8 SDRs, you're spending in that time about $400,000 or $500,000 per customer. Yeah. And some of these products have like a $12,000 a year LTV.
Yeah. So just the math just doesn't make sense, right? Yeah.
So I don't know. What would you say? That's been my high level guess.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I mean, just like anything, any great model and idea definitely has to adapt and change over time. And one of the biggest things that we're seeing now is because there's just so much content out there and it's good content. So it's not like before where it was hard to find like a great blog or a great piece of, information or a great podcast. Now everybody's doing it and they're doing it well with all the tools available to us, right? So now there's all this noise out there that we're seeing almost like decision paralysis from clients, right? Because there's just they have all the opportunity in the world to identify what they need themselves. So they're getting all this information from all these competitors, and then they're getting salespeople hammering them. And it's just like, well, I got it. I got all of this. So what I was saying to you before is like, people don't want to be sold anymore. They want to be consoled. They want to be told that this is okay. They want to be told that their decision is correct. So now building that relationship, understanding what's out there, being able to dilute an entire huge amount of information and explain it to them in a way that makes sense. That's what sales has become now, right? So yes, in some ways it's still a numbers game. Sure. The more people you talk to, the more you're eventually going to sell, right? But is it just like hammering people all day long, making cold calls? No, I mean, you have to use all the tools out there in every avenue. Marketing in particular has become critical to this situation, right? So again, allow the person to make a decision for themselves. So this is marketing job to do that shotgun approach, right? So what are some of the things you guys are doing and how are you competing with the guys with the huge budgets?
Yeah, the huge budgets is a big challenge because a lot of companies don't have to make a return. So if you're bootstrapping or anything like that, a medium-sized business like either of our two companies, you're in a different position because you can't spend $25,000 a month and not get a return because you will just run out of money. So I think you're right. It's a great question. So I look at it like there's 4 levels of the ladder. So the lowest level is you've got to automate everything you can possibly automate.
Yeah.
I think people mistakenly think they should automate everything. So they're trying to automate like following up with 3 prospects. Like that does not need to be automated. But things like bulk emailing, like missing spam filters, like buying 800 packages of Skittles on Amazon Prime to send to prospects, like all that stuff, there's just an automation layer that it's getting so easy with like low code applications that you can really do that without even being uber technical. I look at then the next layer is you've got to be able to outsource everything that can't be automated. So like these little human layers, like stuffing envelopes or dialing phone trees. Like I know we don't do dialing. You guys do a lot of dialing. Like, so all those, then I think the third layer is you got to have like processes to test things and try and like get very efficient. And then the final one's like creativity at the top. So my view is you've got to sort of set up this pyramid. And then in terms of specific strategies, my view of this has changed where you've got to understand the more narrow you want the buyer persona to be, the more it's going to cost you to talk to that person.
Right.
So someone like you is like a great sales coach. If you say, I want to talk to any CEO in the whole country who needs sales help, that like cost of acquisition with automation, like literally starts to approach like the limits approaching 0 when you automate email, because if you understand like Office 365 and all these tools, like you can set like 300 or 400 meetings a month for virtually no cost.
Right.
Like because it's just like a percentage, like there's 1 million CEOs and you can get 3% to respond, which is 30,000. And if like 1 out of every 100 said they're interested, like that is interesting, but not everyone can do that. So as they get more narrow, where we really then start to think about is like really weird things. Like, could you take the email body and put it into a Shutterfly poster like you would buy for your house,
right,
and mail the person like a Shutterfly frame with the same message on it, but in a Shutterfly picture?
Right.
Or could you, like my Skittles example, could you buy like Skittles and be like, Skittles are sweet, but sales coaching from Christina's even sweeter, and then hit like everyone in a city that is more in the office with like COVID protocols, and then send like 1,000 of that, and then email the 1,000 like, did you get my Skittles? Or
right.
I think what you guys are doing with content, like being on LinkedIn and present, and like you and I wouldn't know each other if you didn't reach out and say, let's talk. We had some mutual connection, but like now if we know each other in the future, if you said, Miles, we need a new client, we do dialing, like we have some probably overlap in business, but we don't do dialing. It's like, I'd be like, yeah, like, let me look through, let me think of who, like, because we built enough of a relationship where like all these strategies. So my kind of top 4 are traditional outbound, like again, kind of modified sales development, like direct mail, co-creating content with the market, and then personal branding on LinkedIn, like daily telling your story. And you're right, that's a competitive game because there's a lot of people doing it. But I think the arbitrage is telling Christina's story.
Yeah.
Why you're coaching, what's fulfilling, the results you're getting is still unique compared to the 95% of people that are just saying, look at my white paper.
Yeah, that's it. Exactly. And when we're talking about personal branding, and another thing we were chatting about before we went live is how much clients now buy the person, not the product, right? So it's building that trust and that relationship. And essentially they are trusting in you because let's face it, there's tons of us, there's tons of product, there's tons of everything, right? But for some reason they trusted you. So now this personal branding, this being out as a thought leader, putting out good content, letting people understand who you are, but uniquely who you are, right? So gone are the days, the polished everything, right? And professional this and professional that. The more real, the more raw, the more fallible, the better, right? It's just people are, I think, sort of done with the layers and the veils of BS that's out there, right? And they just want to see, who are you and can I trust you?
Yeah. And I think you're right. One of the things that no one talks about is it's just very hard to build anything at scale. So like great customer service when the restaurant owner is wiping the tables is infinitely easier than doing that at 800 chains across the country. Yeah, so I think we default towards smaller things that we can understand and control. And that's creating an opportunity for people to be in more entrepreneurial jobs where they're compensated more and take more risk, and not necessarily with their own company. It might be inside the walls of a company, but I think that more and more you're going to see businesses move towards that, because the idea that every single customer service person at AT&T should be paid the exact same amount of money makes no sense, because some of them drive a lot of business and some of them don't.
Exactly.
And the quality of AT&T in our minds is like going to the roulette table and rolling it and see what happens, because some of them are great and some of them aren't great. Right. And I think that underscores even like the hiring and stuff is so complicated that eventually it's simpler to, in my mind, it's probably simpler to, in some ways, like stay as small as you can control the quality and then try to grow more slowly. But that's a separate issue. I know that's not what the venture capitalists do.
No, it's definitely not what they're doing. But like you said, what was the stat? You said 50% of VC money is going into like Google ads or something.
Yeah,
right
I've heard that. I don't know if that's what I've heard anecdotally. Someone said half of every VC dollar goes to paid ads. I think it was specifically on Google, the person who told me.
Yeah. So think about that. That's insane, right? So how's a little guy supposed to buy up any sort of keywords right now whatsoever when that is happening, right?
Yeah. Oh, so yeah. And that's you're exactly right. It has to become creativity, because the minute everyone is doing something, like you're going to lose. And the best source, I think, of creativity is if you look at like Dave Ramsey or Gary Vaynerchuk or Simon Sinek or these people, they're not idiots. They make a lot. I mean, Ben Shapiro, I think Ben Shapiro, the political talker, makes like $90 million a year or something on it. Like, I mean, it's like crazy. Like these guys watch what they do. Like all of them do podcasts just like this.
Yeah.
So Gary Vee doesn't have 19 minions doing his podcast. He does them. That shows you, like, if he thinks his time's valuable there, like maybe my time would be valuable there. But Gary Vee, to the best of my knowledge, isn't buying like hundreds of thousands of dollars of Google AdWords a month anymore.
No.
But he used to. That's how he got famous. And that's where you said, I think these things all go through evolutions. And you've got to figure out within it, like cold email, as an example, the one benefit you have in email versus Google AdWords is Google AdWords says, someone searching for a phone, you're going to put an ad, we sell phones. Like if you say anything other than we sell phones, we're going to block your ad as being inappropriate content.
Exactly.
Yeah. So basically you don't get any creative. In an email, you can come at them like so many different angles that the creativity probably gives you a little more lift than but some of these like LinkedIn white papers, like I think you're right. It's like burning money to decide you're going to run $10,000 a month of LinkedIn white paper ads.
Yeah.
I don't see any reason that that should work with how many people trying to do it. Yeah.
No. And, like I've always been inspired by the old guerrilla marketing tactics back in the day, right? Whereas the epitome of creativity, Cameron Herold, CEO 1-800-GOT-JUNK, former CEO, he came out with a book called Free PR. And they talked about, like, I don't know if you've read that one. It's really great. Like talked about all the crazy antics that they used to do, I saw one thing Brian Scudamore posted the other day, and it was, something back when they all went to Vegas and they infiltrated the city with the blue wigs and the blue everything and the 1-800-GOT-JUNK. And it's just silly things like that. But they got such incredible brand recognition. Next thing you know, they're on Oprah. Like a junk company gets on Oprah, and now he was just on Ellen last week. Like just insane, right? This is a junk company. And their success, I mean, obviously brilliant guys and great guys and all the rest of it, but so much of that came from unique, innovative marketing ideas that no one was doing before, right? So that's how do you do that today when it feels like everything's been done?
Yeah, I think you got to be fearless, because it's not, the beauty of it is big companies are afraid to do anything wrong. So they're like incredibly bureaucratic. There's lots of people involved. No one's going to do anything that all their competition isn't doing, because they don't want to get like and I'm probably generalizing, but I'd say in general, that's true. And so like I think the nice thing is, if your blue wig example, if you and I went to like a Salesforce.com conference and did that, it would probably still be unique. If every company did that, it would start to get impossible, but a lot of them won't, because they all kind of groupthink around, again, some of these strategies that don't work. So I try to look for cross-pollinating with other industries. Like you said, what are examples where someone did it in one, where it hasn't been done in my industry?
Right.
And I also try to think about just being fearless. Like I love the question, like if Elon Musk suddenly took over my company, like what advantage would he have over me? And it's like, well, it would be like his mindset, his like mental models, his relationships, and his work ethic.
Yeah.
And so it's like, how can I like, what would he do? Like, he would take a lot of risk like that and wouldn't care. Cause like, I look at the risk the guy's taking, I think he made like $100 million on PayPal and then put every penny back into SpaceX and Tesla and like lived in his friend's So like his example would be like, go to the hilt, like go for it. It's going to be okay if you fail. And I think if we embrace that attitude, then you start to come up with ideas that actually work. I think the more scared you are to deviate from what everyone else is doing, the more you're just going to die in right now in ambiguity. Yeah.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts on, because this actually came up internally when, we were talking about certain clients and the content that they were putting out was like silly or, maybe didn't resonate with the type of client they were trying to attract. So what are your thoughts on that? Like, should you just be fearless and put out anything at the risk of not coming across as professional, or should you stay within your wheelhouse and know who your customer is?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think the wisdom that Dale Carnegie, the famous book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, I think put out was like, you're not going to catch flies with vinegar. So you need to figure out what's vinegar and what's honey to your audience. Like, I think you're right. Like making a Will Smith Academy Awards meme to like CIOs might not be funny to most of them.
Yeah.
Like, or like HR, because there's, that issue, even just how it's being handled is controversial. Like you probably just wouldn't want to go there as a company. Like if you're doing like a cold email meme, you can be like a little more aggressive because some people might think it's really funny and some people might hate it. But as a company, I think you're right. You have to really think about what you're communicating because it says more if your logo is attached to it. And companies are realizing that, like when they make mistakes on touching on some of these key issues, then they suddenly fall out of favor. But what you do realize is when everyone agrees on something, like I haven't seen anyone agree that like Russia should be in Ukraine.
Right.
When everyone does it, you stop getting attention for agreeing with the audience.
Right.
So what I've noticed is there's a lot of people who are following the news and trying to kind of newsjack whatever the latest thing is, but when everyone does it. So I look at it as a fine line, but what I would say in that case is like, if you think about the IT people who wouldn't maybe think the memes were funny, like I bet all of them would love to meet Tom Brady if they were CIOs in Boston. Right. And so I look at it like, if I was a big company, you spend millions of dollars on all these things, like it wouldn't cost millions of dollars to get Tom Brady to a steak dinner. And does that allow you to create content that then is interesting to people? Like, how do you think about like doing things differently? And in our case, like we've tried to really understand like what a lot of the market thinks their audience wants is content. So like 5 ways to do sales better, like 3, but the market is so oversaturated. Like you said, it's like they're in a swimming pool and dumping water on them. Like they just don't need any more water. But what they do want is genuine connection. What they do want is to be featured on podcasts. What they do want is someone to buy lunch for them. Like we have copy that's like thinking about what the human wants to say, I need something from you. I need you, Christina, to hear out what I do. Yeah. But I realized that like, there's no way on earth you would do that by itself.
Yeah, exactly.
What can I do for you? And I think that's changing the economics. Like someone like me, like who's bold about my faith or wanting to be generous. Like if someone reached out and said, I see you volunteer at the Bowery Mission, I'd like to give $100 because I realize there's no other way you would ever talk to me about my PEO.
Right.
Like that can become, I think that works because it doesn't mean you'll buy it. But again, I think you should think about that's where everyone's missing. If they talk to me, it's like, if I'm not in PEO buying cycle, how do you keep in touch with me when that comes? Because it will come.
Yeah.
Like someone will say, you should be using a PEO. Why don't you use it? And when that comes, I think that's where LinkedIn branding with packaging, with podcasts.
Comes back to that, doesn't it?
Yeah. And that's where I think the SDR model is broken because it's so focused on getting you to an AE right now. And the AEs are so focused on closing you right now. There's no view of Christina as a human.
Yeah.
And as much as people pretend that software can do this, like a CRM, the CRMs to me are so in the dark ages of what we're talking about.
Right.
It's just a human, like your human mind is the best CRM on earth when it comes to like, oh, I haven't talked to Christina in a while.
Yeah.
Like she'd appreciate this. And I think that's where people are trying to automate the wrong thing. They're not automating the front enough because you don't need 8 SDRs. You can do all the emailing of 8 with 1.
Yeah.
Like and you could hire a company like Predictable Revenue. They can do like way more volume than you'll ever do yourself. Yeah. And you should spend more time automating the front end and less time automating the back. When there's only 19 Christinas, don't send them all the same book.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't send them a HubSpot email. Try to think through each person. And I think, I think that's where my view, I hate to call, success is so relative. I think our ability to grow our, little company to 20 people in a couple years time has really been predicated. I guess technically it's been 4 years, but has really been predicated on, it's crazy. I think April 1st is year 4. So tomorrow's
congrats.
But I think the reason is just trying to not do the dumb stuff that that you see other people doing. Cause it's just they burn so much money. Yeah.
It's astronomical. The amount of money that gets burned with this, you could start how many more businesses, and it's just, it's sickening to see. When back in the digital marketing days, and we would look at budgets and what people were spending, and you're just sitting there shaking your head, and they have no content. They honestly thought if they put, money in this nebulous sort of world, it would come back to them tenfold. And it's just no, you still need content. You still need a product. You still need to have something to say. Right. Yeah. And half the time they didn't even understand their own voice and who their competitors were. I'm well, how are you supposed to get content out there or have people come to you if you don't even know who you are?
Totally. And the law of large numbers is a myth for a lot of businesses, because I think the law of large numbers, this idea, if it didn't work at 10,000, it might work better at 100,000. And unless you're in a business, which are so rare, where you're paid per user or something of the company size, most of these businesses don't have linear models where getting Apple as a customer makes them any more money than getting a 200-person company. And the law of large numbers, when that's true, doesn't a business like mine with, small fractional services, Apple's no better of a customer to us than Main Street Bob.
Right.
So just, and the same, I'm assuming similar for you guys. So when you think about that, it's it changes your perspective, because the law of large numbers just doesn't exist. You're not gonna get lucky at scale. You really need something repeatable now.
Oh God.
Yeah. And you need, I think people are massively undervaluing the role of coaches like you to say, someone who's outside of it, who's not emotional. And I've seen businesses balk at spending $500 an hour with Christina, but then they'll spend $50,000 on Google ads. And you're thinking I don't know.
Right?
It doesn't make any sense to me. Yeah.
No, it doesn't. And I think a lot of the problem is because there is so much money getting thrown all over the place that either people just throw money at bodies. So it's just more bodies that'll fix the problem, but it doesn't. Or like you say, just ads and just stuff out there, and none of it works. Right. And it's because especially these, younger tech companies that they have all this money and they grow super, super quickly. They don't think about fixing the foundations, and they don't think about what that means. And so they scale really quickly and they think they can do no wrong. And then they get to a certain size, they hit that $1 million mark and everything breaks. Right. Or they hit 20 employees and everything breaks. And it's just what the hell happens? And we see it all the time. And it's because they didn't do any of the work. Right. They didn't build their house properly. And those little cracks in the foundation blow up into craters as soon as it's more money involved, more people involved, more all of that. Right. So many companies, like you say, they don't take the time to actually look within. And sometimes you need a facilitator to have a fresh set of eyes and to let you go through the process of who are we and what is our strategy and who are our competitors and where is our, little blue ocean. Right. And I'm astounded at how many companies do not know this or don't do this, and they expect to scale. It's never going to happen.
And I think you're absolutely right that the building, building a strong foundation, you're kind of if you're building a house, so many businesses are looking for quick tactics.
Yeah.
They want to do the minimum amount of customer service possible, or the minimum amount of discount. And I've noticed if you go the other way and you realize your business will be basically buoyed by customers, strategic partners, employees, in some businesses, the community, those stakeholders, they're like investments, but investments don't come without sacrifice. Every time we've had a customer ask for a refund, as far as I'm aware, the last 4 years, we've given them a refund. So we've never refused. So something like that, when you think about it, it's second nature to me now. If someone's upset, we say I'm sorry, I'm sorry you're upset. How do we make it right? Over time, that becomes a foundation of customer trust and respect. Now, not every customer stays with us. That upset customer might still leave, but then 2 months later, they bring their friend back. Whereas if we had it, they might have told that friend never work with Veth Group. Like,
Yeah.
and I think that's that foundation where there's a really, really randomly good book in investing called Enough by Jack Bogle, who's the guy who started Vanguard, the famous ETF company. And so much of it is like, everyone is doing speculating in the market. They just want to make a quick buck on Bitcoin or a quick buck on whatever. And they're not doing like the long-term. And I think marketing is the same way. Like if you're just chasing arbitrage, is like, we can get 1 million views on TikTok by putting up video, but like, that's like going to exist as a flash in the pan. But if it's not a coherent strategy, that's really about what can I do for others without expecting anything in return?
Yeah.
That actually builds a relationship. That's what investing is. It's a sacrifice of the present for the future. And frankly, I just think in America, we're all guilty of it, but I think the mindset has become so much like I have to be successful right now.
Right.
And whether it's fitness or diet or like investing or buying a house or just like, I don't know if it's even tied to one generation, just in general. It's like everyone is so focused on like, how do I get this right now? Like I want 85 leads right now. It's like 85 leads right now isn't, if you're doing it with a tactic, is like different than building a sustainable relationship strategy. Like those 85 actually buy from you because they know you. And I don't think people are really willing to put the time in, and the few who do are getting the lion's share of the results. Yeah.
You got it. And I think that's a perfect spot to end off, isn't it? Right. So, build the relationships, put the time in, don't expect immediate results. This is a long-term strategy. This isn't the flash in the pan. Get your personal brand out there. Know that people are buying you, not necessarily the product, right? What more can we say on the topic?
Yeah. And I would say coaches like yourself, I think invest in advisors and ride the waves with them. Like a lot of people are tempted to get rid of a coach if they're not seeing immediate results. And I think if you commit to someone like you who's done this 100 times for years, like not to make it a commercial for your service, but I really think I really think it works. Like that's been one of the best learnings I've had, is like find a few people, but when you're not feeling like you're getting the value, keep pushing through, because there's a stat by a pastor in New York I like named Tim Keller, which it's a really interesting stat. Like I think 90% of unhappy marriages, if the couple persists for like 12 months, end up happy again.
Wow.
It's this idea of like, there's going to be valleys in life and you've just got to push through them. Yeah. And marketing is absolutely no different. It's just like, if you expect it just to be like this,
the magic bullet.
Yeah. All the work is going to be in the valleys, and then the hills are what you get to enjoy as the work in the valleys, but you pretty much have to get used to the valley. So yeah, it's been a privilege today. I appreciate the time talking.
I appreciate you taking the time as well. So anyone who is listening, please follow Miles on LinkedIn, because he has some great content. He lives what he's been talking about here. So to get more information on what he does and how he does it, definitely follow him. And of course, make sure you click the subscribe button on this page so you can be notified about more live streams like this in the future. So thanks again, Miles. It was an absolute pleasure. We will be chatting again, I am sure.
My pleasure. Absolutely.
Take care.